Hey Little Pearls, this is Randa from Little Pearl Education Group, and today we have story time. So our story time is when I give you a story from my experience in education in order to hone in on a theme that is present in today's educational field. So in this story, it is about a little kid who was a sixth grader. And throughout his education, he had a lot of trouble. He would have violent fits and rages. He will tear up an entire classroom. I mean, like tornado style, tear it up, pull things down, bookshelves, desks turn over. Just like when I say destroy the classroom, destroy the classroom. And of course, this kid was designated as special needs, so he had an IEP. He had the whole shebang, and he actually left your traditional public school and he went to a school specialized to deal with kids who had extreme behaviors and problems with getting with a regular school's itinerary. And so he came to the school in which I was working in sixth grade. And they gave a lot of warnings about him and his disability. And one of the problems that I have as an educator is when they talk about kids and they talk about their disability. Why are you focusing on the disability? What are his abilities? That's number one. And so typically what they do is they paint this really negative picture. And I had no idea what I was getting into, but I've had students in the past that have had labels that have been put on them. And in my classroom, they were absolutely, positively fine. So I did not worry, but I did question, what is this going to look like based upon their data? Needless to say, like all kids, he tried it. He tried it. And for teachers and parents, that's what kids do. They try it. They were born it's embedded in their psyche to try to see what they can get away with. And so with my methodologies, with the way that I teach, it was just shut down, right? Without shutting the kid down. You shut the behaviors down, not the person. And so he really excelled. He was really behind in reading as well as math, and I was the ELA teacher and as well as his homeroom teacher. So I set the tone for the day for him, and he really grew 3 grade levels in terms of his reading, his writing, as well as his spelling within that academic school year. And so we were really pleased with his progress. But when he would leave my classroom in the other classes, he struggled. He struggled in his math class, and he struggled in his SPED class. And so when he was not doing well in his SPED class, one of the teachers came to me and told me that they are tracking him and that for every little thing he does, give him a demerit. So a demerit is, a negative point. And if you don't have so many points, then you can't receive the benefits that other kids receive, fun times, field trips, things like that. And there was a big field trip that was coming up, and it was a reward type of field trip. It wasn't an educational field trip. But it was reward for the students who had the most merit, so they earned the most points. And that was one of his goals, right? Because kids who needs external reinforcement, kids who need external reinforcements, that's could be really big for them in terms of whether or not they're going to do the right things, because there is a reward at the end of a certain time period. And so he was definitely motivated via external rewards. Although in my class I didn't have that many external rewards, so he was getting the internal motivation to do the right thing as well. So for the school-wide system, he had that goal. He wanted to be included, because in the past he's been excluded for so many things because of his behaviors. And so they told me, for everything he does wrong, give him a demerit. He should not be going on that trip because of his behaviors in the SPED classroom. And I told the teacher, I said, that's targeting a kid. I don't do that, right? And so I have seen this in education where adults cannot get a handle on a problematic student or situation. And so they internalize it, and it becomes personal for them, and it's a personal vendetta against that student and or that student's family, because usually it's the families that advocate for the student. Instead of a meeting of the minds, it becomes a butting of the heads. And so I'm sure she went back and told the rest of the team what I said, and I meant what I said. I don't target students. My students have, no matter who they are, whether they have a label or not, a positive label or a more challenging label, they tend to do well in my class because I treat them all equally. Okay? I will shout, I don't care what they say about them down the hallway. When they do something well, I shout them out. If there's a challenge, I bring it to the whole group. Okay? And so they continued their shenanigans, and then they escalated it because they started to ask him questions. Because don't forget, these SPED teachers have access to this child's SPED records, and they knew that he should be on medication. And so they started to ask him questions about his meds. And so this is, a little boy. I mean, he was so short and so cute. But, kids can't always efficiently answer questions. They answer things based upon their perspective. And so the way in which he answered the questions, and I wasn't there for the questions, I was told this by the SPED team after. They thought that the mother was being negligent and not giving the child the medication, because what he would do at times is there are some days where he would come into school and he would sleep. Like you couldn't even wake him up. It was really, really challenging to witness, because you just don't know if what's going on. And then when we saw that it was because of his medicines, that makes sense, because I know I've been on medications that has caused drowsiness, and if I try to do a normal activity, it's doggone near impossible. So there's a difference between tiredness from a lack of sleep and a medicine has impacted your sleep pattern. So what the SPED team did was they were going to go after the mother for neglect. So they kept asking him questions on a daily basis about his meds. And the SPED teacher brought it to the person in charge of the entire SPED team. And she convinced that person that the mother was negligent and we need to get as much information as possible and call a PPT and eventually call DCF for educational neglect. So I was there at the PPT. And the mother from the inner city has a slight accent. I would think it's like a Spanish accent, but I'm not sure. And the mother was extremely knowledgeable about her son's conditions, the medications he has been on and has transitioned into other medications and the reasons why. And she also was able to express why he's sleeping. She basically said because he burns so much energy, and it was on his IEP that he is allowed extra foods throughout the day because he eats and he expends that energy. His body, I guess he has a really high metabolism rate and it just goes. And so when she gives him the medication right before bedtime, and it's a time release medication, sometimes it wears off in the middle of the night. So he wakes up in the middle of the night and she has to give him another one. And because it's time release, when it takes effect during the school day. Okay. So this mother is not going to have a 10-year-old 3 o'clock in the morning with full access to the house, fully awake, and everybody else is asleep. That's neglect. So this mother did as her doctor instructed, and she gave him another dose in the middle of the night when that happened. That didn't happen all the time. But when it happened, that's what she did. And that's why he would sleep some days in school. And so they did not believe her. So there was a school psychologist that were there and the school nurse. So this team had convinced them that this mother is the worst person on earth. And the nurse and the psychologist started to talk over the mother when they had asked her a question. And they were trying to figure out other ways in which she can get the child back to sleep without having this impact of him sleeping. And again, it's not every day, in school. And they were telling her Benadryl, and they were suggesting this medication, that medication. Mind you, the school nurse never had his records. Number one, that's not the school nurse's job. Number two, that's not even a nurse in the hospital or a doctor's office job. That's a doctor's job. They were totally out of line, totally, it's illegal for them to do that. But yet and still they did it. And the psychologist is not a psychiatrist. A psychiatrist deals with medication. Why are you telling this mother? And you don't even have the kid's records. So I'm sitting there, and then the parent is like looking at them when they cut her off, and they're going back and forth amongst themselves, the psychologist and the nurse, talking about what can and should be done. And she's looking at them like this. And then she cut in when they allowed her to talk and explained certain things to them. And again, it was knowledgeable about her child and her child's condition and the impact of the suggestions that they brought to light, because he had already actually had interaction with the methods and the medicines that they had mentioned. It was a really ugly scene. And after the PPT, they continue on their quest to pigeonhole this mother, and they were ready to write up the DCF report. I went against it. The only voice. Out of 10 people in that room, I was the only voice that contested their illegitimate actions. And mind you, I will say that in this inner city school, the vast majority of the people in that room were people of color. So although our school systems have a lot of not people of non-color in positions of power. This is a situation where these were people of color going after a family and a student of color. So it always will not, when we talk about things, it will always not follow your traditional race setup. It was just really ugly and disappointing. So I actually went to the principal, because the principal was not there, and reported it. And I actually had to have a meeting. And I got what I wanted. Them to back off of this student and this family in this manner. Absolutely wrong. So, parents, I am warning you that many times when we send our kids to school, we are hoping that people truly care about them and want to guide them and lead them towards success. But unfortunately, baby, we live in a world where people have internalized negative things about you and your child. And even if the facts don't line up to what they're thinking, they're going to follow in that train of thought. And then you are left with a DCF case. You are left with using your energy to fight something that's not even real. It's not even an issue. I don't know about you, but I don't have energy to be fighting against, other people having an issue with me because of their mentality. Because as I'm fighting, I'm using energy that I could be using for something else. Right? And so the mother called me later on that day and went off. And I just listened. Because as a teacher, you're working for an organization. There's not but so much you can say. Right? Because you don't know what this parent or this person is going to do with that information. Right? So if I knew that the parent could use the information, yeah. Boom, 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 boom. But I don't know that. Right? So I listened. I said, absolutely. So when she was dead on and the things that she picked up on the meeting, I was like, absolutely. Yep. You're dead on. So I'm confirming without actually saying something. And so that's really important, because with Little Pro Education Group, I'm not working for a school system anymore, baby. I work for my clients. My clients hire me to do what's best for them. I look at the kids' files. I look at their records. I can see where the school is not doing what they should be doing, whether there's an IEP in place or not, right? So, and I know their tricks. I know how they cover up things. So that's why I am not in a school anymore, because I'm tired of looking at all of the negative things that are happening. And there's some great things that are happening as well. But looking at when students and families are put in, unnecessarily bad situations, and I can only control my area, my classroom, my grade level. It's not enough. I need to be able to do more. So, this story time is really about being aware that there are some really nasty people within schools who don't even have their lives together. And that's why they got time to come for you and yours. So be really careful, honeys. Get yourself an educational consultant right here at Little Pro Education Group. Click down below. I would love to see you to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and become a little pro. Take care. Bye.